it's your girl Sheryl Lynn, and you're watching Sweep the League on Alamo City Podcast Network.
Hey, this is George Iceman Gervin, and you're listening to Sweep the League.
This is Sweep the League. Rudy Campos Jr. I'll be joined by Derek Gervin here in just a little bit. Let me make sure that we are definitely live here. Looks like we are. Yeah, they're good. We are good to go. Definitely. All right. Sorry about the introduction. There is no introduction today. Some mishaps are happening, but we are live right now. Derek Gervin, Rudy Campos Jr. I'm going to bring Derek in a minute. We're going to be talking about last night's Spurs Thunder game, Chet versus Wemby. We are going to also be talking about the NFL Combine a little bit here. So Caleb Williams not doing his not revealing the his medical paperwork. He's not even going through the physicals, anything like that. Marvin Harrison Jr. not appearing, talking to the media. People are making a big deal about it. I don't really see a problem with it at all. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can do and not do when you're at the NFL Combine. Plus, we'll open up the vault here a little bit, talk a little bit about Stephon Marbury, a kid from Coney Island, documentary on Netflix. You want to check that out. Definitely, we're going to talk a little about Derek, because I mentioned about him going overseas and, not necessarily – I mean, you can't really say in some cases it's revitalizing careers, keeping a career going, but in Stephon Marbury's case, it actually, worked out tremendous for him. We're going to get some overseas experience from Derek because he went from the NBA New Jersey Nets to play overseas, and brilliant career by Derek. But Coach Gio will be with us next week. Definitely he's going to be off today. So Tim Gonzalez, what's good, man? Thank you for always chiming in here. Let's go ahead and bring in Derek Gervin here. Derek, man, we're going to jump right into it here in just a little bit, but it's Friday, man. It's the weekend, and it's kind of weird. We had our first hiccup because there was no introduction. I go live, and it just went automatic live, so we can skip all the music stuff and all that stuff that happened, man.
You don't need introduction, man. You're the man. Everybody know who you are.
I don't know if I'm that far going. We'll see one day, brother. We'll see. Tim's in here, always Blue Devils. Tar Heels still suck. We're always going to get it from Tim. At least I am. I'm going to get it from Tim all the time when it comes to the Tar Heels. Thanks for joining in, Tim. But, man, Derek, last night, Spurs had a massive win, in a season of loss and in the season of growth and, everything like that. A win against one of the better, if not the best team in the league. It always feels good to get that victory, especially over Oklahoma City, who has not only a rivalry with the Chet and Wemby thing, but also, I mean, you've got former Spurs front office guy Sam Presti. So a win like this at home, especially coming back off the rodeo road trip, it's got to feel good for a team, especially a young team in growth.
Well, first I'll say good afternoon to everyone out there. Rudy, I thought it was great. I didn't see the whole game, but I saw a lot of the second half. And I have to say this, man, I'm proud of the guys, the Spurs. They played really well. And as you know, at this point in the season, a lot of teams are just playing until the summer so they can get to the vacation time if they're not a playoff team. Yeah. If you watched the Spurs game last night, it had a playoff atmosphere. And the reason I say that is because Oklahoma still has something to play for. They're playing for trying to get the best record. They're trying to nail down the best record in the Western Conference. And as you know, that's important. Mm-hmm. So to see them come out, and it's not like the Oklahoma City put out their, I'll say, the bottom of their roster. They actually had the starters play, and they played same amount of minutes they usually play. Yeah. And so I was excited to see it. Of course, a lot of people wanted to watch it because of the Chet versus Victor saga that we're going to be going through hopefully the next 15 years. But I was very proud to see the guys come out and fight hard. And if you saw how they were really, really excited, you saw Victor at the end of the game. He was acting like they had just made the playoffs. So I was happy to see them continue to fight. I wouldn't expect anything else from a Greg Popovich coach team. And I thought it was a fantastic game.
Yeah, it was a great game. Definitely the outcome I didn't expect. I actually had pegged Oklahoma City to win, which I'm pretty sure majority, anybody watching the game or covering the game probably expected the same thing, because Oklahoma City, I mean, Jalen Williams, Giddey, SGA, Chet, they're a stacked team. They're one of the best teams in the league. So, it was good to see the Spurs come out. You saw a very good team effort by San Antonio. Victor had a great game, 28 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 blocks. I mean, just tremendous. Devin Vassell ended up 28 points. Jeremy Sohan chipped in with 21. Just a good all-around performance by the San Antonio Spurs in a 132-118 victory. Looked like Victor's starting to get a lot more comfortable in the league. And I know you want to get into some Chet and Victor talk. We're going to get into that here in just a second. But, SGA ended up with 31 points. He continues on his MVP run this season, Derek. When you look at SGA compared to the other candidates, Jason Tatum, the Joker, we can't include Embiid, obviously, for injury purposes. But with SGA continuing this tear, it's got to put him – how much closer does it put him to being MVP of the league? Because I know Joker is probably still your number one pick. How much closer does he get to Joker if he continues to put up 30 points a game and they continue to win?
Well, that's a difficult one for me because I've had them 1 and 2 basically all season, practically just those two. And then I've thrown in Tatum and, I had Embiid at one point when he was healthy. Mm-hmm. But other than taking Embiid out of the mix, and I've had these two guys, and of course you got Luka in the mix, you got Anthony Edwards and Tatum. But for me, it's been these two guys. And if Shea continues to play the way he's playing, I see he just set a record for a guy. They got all kind of records today, but still, I think it's his 10th game or something of having 31 points on the nose. Mm-hmm. And so if he continues to do that and they continue to win, and if they can lock down that first, for me, it comes down to who wins the conference. If you want to look at it, who has the better finish between them and Denver. If he were to lead his team over Denver and to that first place, I would seriously have to consider Shea as the MVP of the league. I think right now it's between those two. I don't care if it's Eastern Conference, Western Conference. But finish is not how you start, it's how you finish. So if they were to finish strong, I could definitely see him cementing that MVP.
Yeah, he's definitely top 10, top 3 for me in MVP. He's actually top 2, and I've got him number 1 over Joker, and it's primarily because of the record. They hold a half-game lead over Denver, so you're correct. If Oklahoma has a better record at the end over Denver, I've got to give it to SGA still. He's still my number 1. They can still catch Minnesota be the number 1 team in the West. They're still about 5 games away from Boston, from catching them to have the best record in the league. But again, when you're talking about MVP performances, it's an individual accolade. So I can't really say that, it's a team type thing. So I'm going to give it to SGA still. He's still number 1 on my list because of the record in the West. But you're right, man. I mean, he's been on a tear this entire time. Could you imagine if he would have just, stayed with Kawhi Leonard in Los Angeles? I mean, does that work out better for Kawhi than Paul George? Because that was during the Paul George trade, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, if he stayed healthy, PG, I look at, I'm a big Paul George fan. Mm-hmm. I know he's had his injuries just like Kawhi. But I try not to look back too far because either way, I don't know if they will still come up short with SGA or not. But, the guy has been phenomenal. I've had him in the best. A lot of people might not like this, Rudy, but I've had him as the best guard in the league the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And, even though Luka and him, they shared first team all NBA last year, for me, Shea is a better all-around player than Luka. I know Luka brings a lot to the table offensively. But Shea right now is leading the league in steals. I believe he's 2.1 steals per game. And I just think Shea is a better player. And I wouldn't mind seeing him get MVP. I'm a big Jokic fan, but I'm also an SGA fan.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting race. I know Tim Gonzalez says it's Joker, SGA, Tatum, Brunson so far in the MVP race. You can't ever sleep on Jalen Brunson. I mean, I know he's not going to probably get. You think he finishes in the top 5 on MVP voting?
Oh man, that's going to be a tough one. I think with this, I hate for him to be penalized because of injuries. Mm-hmm. But he struggled a little bit in these games without Anunoby and Julius Randle. Mitchell Robinson has been out for a period of time. Excuse me. But I think Jalen right now, I would have him behind Tatum. To be honest, I might even have him behind AD right now, and Donovan Mitchell, guys like that. So I'm not saying he's falling off a cliff, but right now I wouldn't have Brunson in my top 5. The Knicks have been kind of going backwards a little bit lately, and I know they've been hurt, but you have to still factor that in. And he's a great player, but I still think I don't even know if he's a 1A that could get his team even to the conference finals. So but I have to penalize him for that.
I completely understand, man. Brunson, we started off very hot, with the Knicks especially, but you're right. He has been struggling lately in these games. Definitely affects his MVP race. Get your Flashback Friday questions in for those of y'all that are new to Sweep the League here on the Alamo City Podcast Network on YouTube. Flashback Friday, we've got Derek with us. He's here Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We talk to open up the vault. Talk about old football. We can talk old baseball, old NBA. NBA seems to be the popular choice for obvious reasons, for Derek being on the show. But we talk Flashback Friday. We open up the vault every single Friday. If you got any questions you want to drop them in the chat. We'll get to them as soon as possible. This is Rudy Campos with Derek Irvin. Gio will be here next week. He had to work, unfortunately, today. Work comes in, hot sometimes, and you just got to take your day to do some work. But we're going to get into the Cheeseman, Derek. Obviously, the Cheeseman is going to be about what Chet and Wemby last night. So let's kick off the Spurs Cheeseman here. We'll be right back.
So, like, I hear about the Spurs this y Spurs that, y como que esto y esta, pero I never hear about the real Spurs Cheeseman. Name it, por favor.
Thank you so much, Spurs Cheeseman girls. We are launching the Spurs Cheeseman edition of Sweep the League. So, all right, man, the thing that we've got to go into is obviously last night. You had the 132-118 victory by the San Antonio Spurs over the Oklahoma City Thunder. SGA was a good part of it. Devin Vassell was a good part of it. But everybody paid the ticket. Everybody paid the cable bill as well, and maybe the streaming bill to watch Chet versus Wemby again. Let's drop the stats for last night's game. Chet Holmgren, 33 minutes, 23 points, 7 boards, 5 assists, 1 block, 1 turnover. Wembanyama, 28 points in 32 minutes. He had 13 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 5 blocks, 2 turnovers. Now, Chet obviously had more of the stat stuffing line last night Victor had more of the stat stuffing line last night compared to Chet. Obviously, you can say Victor had the better game. Obviously the Spurs won in this game as well. But from your standpoint, man, I've been saying it for a while too on Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia that as much as I believe in my heart and my gut tells me that Victor Wembanyama is your rookie of the year. And lately in these games, Derek, he's kind of proven it. He's put up some astronomical numbers for a rookie. Numbers that we haven't seen since David Robinson. Since he was a rookie. So my thing is I've kind of given Victor that award, but my mind tells me that when there's voting in the NBA, that the idea of having co-rookie of the year isn't far-fetched, man.
Well, what I've been saying, and some people might get offended. I'm wearing my Spurs stuff today, but if you go back to Jason Kidd and Grant Hill, they were the co-rookies of the year. And the reason I factor Chet in is because Victor, if you look at it right now with the Spurs, Victor doesn't have a lot of pressure on him because the Spurs, we already know they're not going to make the playoff. So Victor can come out and kind of play freely. And Chet, on the other hand, is still has something to play for. The guy he's not the first option, not even the second option. But if you look at him, he's been very solid throughout the year. I don't think he's had a better year than Victor. But if you look at the overall, he's been just as important to his team as Victor has been to the Spurs. And I really want them to be – I would like to see them win co-MVP, Rookie of the Year. I don't think either guy should lose the award. We all know what Victor's about. I'm a big Victor fan, but I can't slight Chet. And that's a lot of pressure coming in, and you're a team that's fighting for first place, trying to win the conference. And Chet has been a big part of that. When you take Chet off of that team, I don't think they're half as effective as they've been all year. And it's the same. Well, Victor has been great for the Spurs. We know he doesn't have the roster that's up to par with Chet. But what Chet has been doing, I think it's been slighted because some people say that he was in the league last year. And we know that he really didn't play a game last year. He didn't play in a practice or any of that. So by my standard, he is a rookie. And I would just like to see both of them win it. Victor's been phenomenal, but I think Chet has been phenomenal as well.
Yeah, they both have phenomenal years. And, if you look at the stats that we have on the screen, I mean, Chet obviously has played more games. He plays more minutes, a couple more minutes more than Victor does. I mean, the stats are pretty not far off. I mean, Chet is averaging 17 points a game, Victor at 20. Chet is at 7 rebounds, Victor at 10. I mean, the assists, so Victor's got him by 1, steals, by 0.6, blocks is 0.7. The stats are pretty identical. So, and that's where I've been saying, as much as Victor's been dominant, a lot of people that are voting for the Rookie of the Year award, they're going to probably go also by record. I mean, they're going to go by record when it comes to Oklahoma City, which that's going to affect Victor right there. And I don't agree with it. I think if a player has been more dominant than another player, I totally get you deserve that award. But if you put it on paper, Derek, it's very identical stats. Victor's not here and Chet is way down here. They are pretty similar in stats, which for a guy that's a second option on an Oklahoma City team, or even a third option with the emergence of Jalen Williams, that's actually pretty good for him, considering the fact that Victor is the option on the Spurs.
Rudy, you got Brandon Miller out there. You've got Jaime Jaquez, right? You got Poshimski. You got some really good rookies that have had good years. But when these two play, even last night, didn't they call it the battle?
Yeah.
I haven't heard it called that with any other rookie this year other than Chet and Victor. So that right there tells me that these two guys have been head and shoulders above everyone else. And I think, like I said, Victor's had a great year. But I don't want to slight what Chet has done. That's a very difficult situation he's been put into as a rookie, to come in and your team and you're still fighting for the best record in the Western Conference, and we know how important that is. I just think both of these guys have had fantastic years, and I wouldn't want to see either one of them lose out on that award. I could easily see them be a co-rookie of the year. That's not a slight to Victor.
Yeah, it's not a slight. And, I know Spurs fans in town are going to go crazy because of, it should be Victor. And, Tim Gonzalez making a point, 87% of since Wemby is locked for Rookie of the Year. The Vegas is having Victor pretty much win the Rookie of the Year right now. And again, we never bet against Vegas, man. It's hard to bet against Vegas because they know things that none of us know. And they have these magical crystal balls that they can see into the future with. So
hey, Rudy, can I say this, though? If it was that clear, it would be 100 or 95, 100% Victor, right?
Yeah.
So there is still a 13% out there that thinks that Chet is at least in the mix. So it's not far-fetched in my mind for them to get co-rookie of the year. That's what I think. They both played well enough to get that. It's not like Victor's not going to win. We know he's going to win Rookie of the Year, but I don't think it slights him at all by adding Chet in there. I think they both have had phenomenal rookie seasons.
They both really have. And I mean, you always say the eyes, the eyes are not going to lie to you. You're clearly seeing the stats as of last night's game. And it's not a huge difference. I mean, it's pretty close. It's really, really close when it comes to stats. Impact is the other part. You can say, well, Victor has been an impact for the Spurs on the court, but does it come out for wins? It hasn't come out for wins, correct. But again, then you say, well, the reason why Chet's team is one of the top teams is because of SGA having an MVP type season. So you have so many different arguments left and right as to why they both could be co-rookie of the year. You have another argument as to why Victor can become just regular rookie of the year. No tie whatsoever. But you even brought up a point too earlier where people are sliding Chet because he's been in the league longer. And that's all you can say. He's not a rookie. He's not a rookie. He was there last year when clearly he didn't play last year. But you've brought up the point on social media, and you brought it up the point earlier when it came to Wembanyama. Last year, Wembanyama played pro ball technically. So, I mean, to say that you can omit the fact that Chet didn't play last year, he's a rookie this year, that's got to be an argument that can't be made for any of this, right?
I haven't heard anyone mention that. I just was thinking about it. I was like, man, look, it's like when Luka came into the league. Luka had already been playing pro ball at about 15 years old. So
Yeah.
was Luka really a rookie when he came in? And once again, it's not to slight Victor. I'm wearing my Spurs gear. I love the things that Victor has done. I think he's had an outstanding year. But he's not really a rookie because he's played pro basketball. And Chet was sitting and watching last year learning. He didn't have any preseason games. He didn't practice with the team. He didn't do any of that. And so Victor has some in-game experience. And I think if you're factoring things in, you got to factor in everything and look at the whole scope, the whole picture. And so he already had experience. I think Chet has had a phenomenal year. I know a lot of people don't like it because he's not down here in San Antonio, and I can understand that. Sam Presti's no longer here. I can also understand that. But if I was to look at these two guys, even last night when you saw Victor got that block shot, when he blocked Chet's shot, Victor, when he blocked it, Rudy, he acted like he had cemented the rookie of the year, right?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so that tells me that he knows as well that Chet has played had a very good year, a spectacular year. And Victor, the game meant something to him. The rookie of the year means something to him. And he voiced that. He said that last night. He voiced it on the television. So the game meant a lot to him, and it wouldn't have meant as much to him if Chet wasn't right there with him in the rookie of the year race. And when I say right there, I'm not saying he's going to win it, but Victor knows that Chet has had an outstanding year as well.
Yeah, we know that neither one of those guys is sliding each other, and it's going to be a rivalry. John actually is saying this, saying, Rudy, you're correct, because if you celebrate the two of them, you celebrate the biggest rivalry for the future. I mean, this is something that we've talked about before. This is a rivalry. This is going to be a rivalry for years, and I am excited, Derek, because it's not a Bird Magic rivalry where they only meet twice a year. You're talking about a rivalry in the same conference, the same division. I mean, it's like, not division, but I mean, the same conference. It's like, man, you're going to see these two guys butting heads every year, 4 times at least on a minimum. And then if the Spurs get the players they're looking for in the offseason, those Western Conference finals could be a Victor Chet type of thing. I mean, this is exciting times for NBA basketball when you have two rookies like this. I don't want to slight Jeff Garcia from Locked On Spurs. He asked a question. Again, Locked On Spurs, I mean, everything Jeff Garcia does is fantastic. It's amazing. Check out Locked On Spurs, part of the Locked On Network. I've got a little mention about Jeff here right after we get to this question, but did the Spurs win or did OKC lose that game last night? That's a question where I think on my part, if OKC was just kind of like, cashing it in, whatever, you wouldn't have seen these guys play that many minutes, and, you wouldn't see the numbers. Like Williams put up 26, SGA 31, Chet 23. I think it would have kind of been a coast job more than anything. I think the Spurs came out. I think it was hey, it's Chet. He's in town. We got to get this win. Oklahoma City's kind of had the Spurs number lately. So this is one of those wins where I want to make a statement. We're back from a rodeo road trip. Spurs go out. They handle business. Does it lead to a massive win streak? Probably definitely not. I mean, it's a win right now. You got to take one win at a time. But I pointed to you at Derek. Was it a Spurs come out and win? Did they just come out, take, no prisoners, or did OKC kind of just lose this game on their own?
Well, first, the score doesn't tell how close the game really was.
Yeah.
Well, I know how it ended up in the last minute or so. They got some separation, but the game was very tight. If you look at it, Keldon and those guys played really hard. They played well. Devin Vassell, Zach Collins, all those guys brought something to the table, man. And they came out and played hard. They took the game from Oklahoma City. They won it more so than Oklahoma City lost. I didn't see what Oklahoma City really did as far as to lose the game other than get outplayed. And I think the Spurs just came out. They played like they wanted it. They playing like they want to finish strong instead of tanking. You got teams like the Washington Wizards. I know they already can't wait to get to that final game. Spurs didn't play like that. They're still playing like they have something to play for. These guys, there was talk about speculation about trades. about Keldon Johnson leaving. There was speculation about possibly Vassell leaving, Sohan leaving. So these guys are proving that they want to be a part of something special next year, and they plan like they want to remain San Antonio Spurs. So for that reason alone, I'm going to say that they earned the victory last night. They took the game more so than OKC lost it.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I mean, it was more of a Spurs came out and they just, took no prisoners, and that was something that you'd like to see from a young group. I mean, they've been questioned all year. We've questioned whether Devin's hit, a wall and that's his ceiling. We've seen the issues with Keldon. I mean, Keldon, it's like, okay, he's hit his ceiling. He's not going to improve anymore. You've seen the erratic, Mount Everest type of stuff from Jeremy Sohan, where he's at a high point, then he disappears for a while. He goes down the mountain, and he's back up the mountain, down the mountain. Just a real roller coaster ride. The only consistency that we've seen from the Spurs has been Victor, and it's not even consistency, Derek. It's improvement. I mean, you're seeing the kid really grow up from the first 10 games of the year, now just getting to that next level each and every game.
Man, I interviewed a guy at the end of 2022, I believe it was, by the name of Mark Eaton.
Oh man, Mark Eaton.
And when you look at Victor getting these 5 blocks, I mean, that's become pretty consistent the last 20 games.
Yeah,
5 blocks, 7 blocks, 5 blocks. I mean, it reminds me of Mark Eaton, because if you look at how many shots Mark Eaton was blocking, I mean, one year especially, he was like off the charts. Yeah, and I can see that with Victor as we move forward. He's learning the game. He's still learning the NBA. And he's got a lot to learn, but he's picking his spots a lot better defensively and offensively. If you remember, Rudy, early in the year, Victor kind of struggled rebounding the basketball and defensively as far as, deflecting shots or altering shots. You haven't seen any of that the last month or two of the season. He's continued to ascend. And so I had to bring up Mark Eaton, because I can't remember a guy that's been consistently blocking shots like that. We've had some good ones, the Dwight Howards. I can go on and on. Wilt block shots. But if you're looking at this era, man, this guy, it's a chance he might average over 4 blocks a game. And you know what that reminds me of? If he were to do that, Rudy, it reminds me of the one year Alvin Robertson averaged the 3.67 steals.
Yeah.
Just totally separating yourself. And that's what I see Victor being capable of doing when it comes to blocking these shots, throwing these shots in the stands. And it's a pleasure to watch.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. D'Lo's in here, says, don't forget, it's also a narrative-driven award. As of right now, Wemby has a narrative and media is on his side. The media, and that's what we're saying. It's a darling type thing. We don't know how the media is going to vote. I mean, right now, everything is pointed towards Victor winning the Rookie of the Year award. But you also have some media guys that stop, they pump the brakes, Derek, and they're kind of like you and I saying, okay, the stats don't necessarily say it's a runaway award. And I mean, they're going to take that into consideration. We've said they're going to probably take record into consideration. I'll just say, personally, I'm going to say it like I've been saying it for a while. Don't be surprised if it's a co-Rookie of the Year this year. I mean, unless Chet just goes completely off the face of the earth, I fully expect the co-Rookie of the Year. And I think it's because of the way people are going to be voting at the end. I think that's kind of safe to say.
When is the last time you seen 2 guys of this size, of their height, and could shoot the 3 like they're, Wemby continues to improve his 3-point shot. Last night he was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And Chet, isn't Chet about a 40%? Yeah, 40%. So from 3-point range, but both of them could put it on the floor. Neither is a bad passer. They both are very intelligent. I mean, if you look at one of them, you know what it reminds me of, Rudy, and some people might laugh. You remember when Ralph Sampson, he was in Houston.
Yeah.
And then they bring in Olajuwon, right?
Yeah, Twin Towers, original Twin Towers.
So you can't go wrong either way. And then I played against 2 guys here in San Antonio, Tim Duncan's rookie year. I'm on the floor with Tim Duncan, and I'm on the floor with David Robinson. You can't go wrong either way. And that's how I'm looking at these 2 guys. I don't know about if you switch teams, if Victor will be doing better, making OKC do better. I'm not going to get into all of that. I'm just going by what I've actually seen. You haven't had it this close in the rookie race in quite a few years. And I just want to see both of them get rewarded.
Yeah, it's probably the way it's going to be, I think. I think you're still going to see co-rookie of the year, in my opinion. And like I said, unless it just gets dramatically separation from Victor, then I can see it a one-way street. Tim Gonzalez is asking Jeff Garcia for Locked On Spurs. Again, I got to bring up something with Jeff here in a minute. But let's point this out here when it comes to the Spurs. A hot topic is always going into the offseason. And you hear about the Trae Young talk. You hear about, the Spurs have draft picks and they have all these assets and money. So Tim's wondering, should they run it back next year? I think personally, I was saying a year ago that this team's not going to go to the play-in game. They're not going to go to the playoff game. You draft Wembanyama, it's a start, but again, there's nothing on paper, there's nothing on film that showed me that these guys are still going to go to that next level. I personally don't think you run it back. You got to make some changes. You know what you have in Victor. The cement is poured. The foundation is there. You have Victor Wembanyama. You know what you're getting. Now this offseason is when you start to build around him. I don't think you run it back. Derek, do you think they should run this team back, or we're going to see some changes this offseason?
I don't think you run it back. And for one reason, you look at their record. I don't think they're going to make that kind of drastic improvement next year if you were to keep this roster. Mm-hmm. They don't have enough core pieces, I'll say, around Victor. So even like Trey Jones, I love Trey Jones, but Trey Jones is not a starting guard to me. To me, he's a backup, and he's a really good backup. And then you got to still figure out these guys with Branham, Champagne. I like these guys, Wesley, but sometimes they're up and sometimes they're down. And there comes a time you got to make a change. Victor wants to win right now. And so that means you got to go out and you got to kind of come out. Spurs going to have to come out of their comfort zone. And they're going to have to go out there and try to bring in, I won't even say a superstar, but they have to start looking for a star. Mm-hmm. I consider Trae Young a star. I consider DeRozan a star. These guys are stars to me. Siakam was out there before the Pacers picked him up. I consider him a star. And I think that's what the Spurs are going to do. They're going to have to surround Victor with a little more quality, I'll say. These guys they have right now are really good players, but they can upgrade the roster. And I think that's what they're going to have to do. I think that's what they will do over the summer.
100%, man. They got to do something with the team. I mean, if you bring the same team again next year, maybe 5 more wins. I mean, again, this isn't a team that's going to go on a world beater tour, make a play-in game. You're seeing what you've got this year. And I've heard the narrative saying, it's Victor's first year. Give him a whole year together. Run it back next year. That's going to be a totally different team. You've had the same guys in the organization for a long time.
Hey, Rudy, just look at it this way. Yeah. And I don't want this to happen, but I'm just saying, if Victor were to get injured and have to sit out some time, what would the fans feel about the roster then?
Trade him off.
Okay. So there's your answer. You take Victor off the floor. What are we stuck with? We stuck with some good players that play hard, but are we stuck with some guys that can keep the Spurs afloat while Victor is out? And I say with the current roster, no. It's not to slight these guys, but even these guys that are on the current roster know that they need to upgrade if they're going to contend moving forward against these teams in the Western Conference that are continuing to get better.
Yeah, I agree, man. You've got to improve the roster. And you're right. If Victor wasn't here, everybody would be calling for this entire organization to just trade everybody just so they can get, stars in. You have all these assets. You're not using the assets. You're not drafting right. I mean, we brought it up before. We kind of are real skeptical on Brian Wright's drafting ability because a lot of his picks outside of the obvious Wemby one have not panned out the way they're supposed to. Right. So, it's tough. It is Flashback Friday. You want to get your questions in. You can ask us pretty much anything. We do have a question from Tim Gonzalez that we are going to get to here. Tim, I promise we'll get the question. It revolves around Larry Keenan, but Jeff Garcia, which before I get to this question, Derek, because this is a good question for you. This is another reason we love having you here at Sweep the League, because these are questions that you can answer that a lot of us can't. So we're going to get to Jeff's question here in a minute. Tim Gonzalez is also talking about the Cavaliers because of Donovan Mitchell. Avery Johnson put out there one time that Donovan should basically bring his family and bring his game to San Antonio. That would be an awesome type thing to go. Again, it's Flashback Friday. We're going to take a quick commercial break here. Give a quick shout out to Jeff Garcia. We'll talk a little bit more about Jeff Garcia's question as soon as we get back. It's Derek Irvin. It's Rudy Campos Sr. It is Sweep the League.
Locked on Spurs is your daily Spurs podcast, hosted by Jeff Garcia, the lead Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Jeff has a healthy plethora of guests all the time on the Locked on Spurs podcast. You can also follow Jeff on Threads at Jeff G Ken's 5 SA. You can also follow Jeff on Twitter at Jeff G Spurs Zone. So make sure you go ahead and give Jeff a follow not only on Threads and Twitter, but also on YouTube at youtube.com/@Locked On Spurs. This is where you're going to be able to find the replay of the Locked On Spurs podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share.
Yeah, definitely follow Jeff Garcia, friend of the show, Locked On Spurs, part of the Locked On Network. Get it wherever podcasts are available. They are on YouTube, so you can check out Jeff's interviews and shows that he has. Does a fantastic job. Probably one of the best Spurs beat writers out there. Covers the team really, really well. It's at JeffGSpursZone.com. Real quick on the Jeff Garcia scene this weekend. Hey, Derek, I'm going to have a busy Saturday, Derek, and it's going to be kind of cool. Got to take the little one. You know my daughter Joanne, and she's a big anime person now. She loves anime. This weekend, tomorrow and Sunday, the Kawakan, not KawhiCon. Joe Garcia yesterday said KawhiCon almost got us canceled because San Antonio started lighting up torches when he mentioned Kawhi. But definitely KawhiCon is this weekend over at the Henry B. Gonzalez Center. Jeff Garcia is going to be hosting all the panels, all the voice actors, all the actors, everybody there. They've got to go through Jeff Garcia. So we're going to be hanging out, myself and daughter. Jeff's going to be there. If you're out there and you see me, I'm going to be decked out in my Sweep the League shirt that Gio doesn't have yet. Just Derek, I, and a couple of people have a Sweep the League shirt. I'll be decked out in my Sweep the League attire. So if you see me, say hi. I'm going to probably be handing out some stickers as well. I have some Sweep the League stickers. So come up to me, say hi. Or, we'll have a lot of fun. But again, tomorrow and Sunday, it is KawhiCon 3 Wishes, the convention that's going on over at the Henry B. Gonzalez Center. Tomorrow, Jeff Garcia will be there as well as myself. So, Derek, we've got to get to some of these questions because a lot of them are coming up. Jeff Garcia, who we just mentioned, let's see if we can get it here. So, last night, Don Harris from WOEI News 4 basically sent out a tweet saying, Devin's struggling. And I've got to bring up the tweet. I'm just kind of paraphrasing it. Basically, the struggles again, turnovers, and then Devin Vassell kind of clapped back and basically kind of take a chill pill, Don. We got the victory. Just enjoy it. In Don's defense, Derek, that tweet came out, I think in the third quarter. So it didn't come out at the end of the game. It didn't come out there. So I kind of see where Don was kind of getting flack for it because Devin said something back in return to him on social media. Then you saw other players chiming in, getting Don Harris. But again, the tweet did come out a whole lot way before the game ended. So he obviously couldn't tell the outcome of it. But needless to say, in professional athletes, and you've been there before, when you've got people talking negative in the media. And in the old days, Derek, it wasn't social media. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. It was reporters were in the locker room talking to you. You had to read about it the next day in the newspaper and see what people were saying. So when a media person would come up and you felt slighted and disrespected, did Devin handle it right? Kind of just say, hey, relax, take a chill pill. How are the players handle it? And what is your thoughts on the whole Don Harris thing?
Well, for one, I'm a big fan of Don Harris, so let's get that out there. I think Don has been a legendary in what he's done here in San Antonio sports. And, Rudy, he gets paid. It's kind of like, sometimes the guys get upset with Stephen A. Smith, guys like Kevin Durant. If you notice, there are only certain guys that gets under their skin. Don Harris gets paid to report on sports, and part of that reporting is on the San Antonio Spurs. If Devin wasn't did he say anything out of bounds is my thing. I don't think he said anything out of bounds. Devin has been up and down this season. That's the fact. And I just wish that these guys would just go out and play. If you look at Victor, he might get upset about some things that have been said about him, But what he does is he takes that to the court. And what you do is you silence people with your actions. Your actions is you go out there and you just play better basketball. And that right there would silence Don Harris. You're not going to ever control what someone from the media says. And I wouldn't even get into a tit for tat with a guy like Don Harris, who has if you look at his career, Rudy, you know him very well. The man has done a lot in this game in San Antonio, the sports world. And sometimes we just got to have thicker skin. Yeah, and just let things just fly over us, and we just try to make the improvements the next game. And to me, it's a bunch of nothing. I'm not upset with what Don Harris said, and I don't think Devin should be either. Just let your actions continue to speak for you.
Exactly, and I brought it up so you can see it as well, Derek, in case you hadn't seen it. You know, Don said low basketball IQ mistakes keeping Oklahoma City in it. Devin guilty again, bad shots, bad decisions, bad turnovers, bad fouls. Spurs by 2 going to the fourth. Again, the tweet came out before the fourth quarter started, and no one predicted the outcome of the fourth quarter. No one knew the Spurs were going to go on the run and get the victory between Oklahoma City. So, of course, after the game, Devin says, you know, stop hating, bro. Just enjoy the dub. # go Spurs, go heart. I didn't take it as disrespect. And I think, you know, Devin wasn't necessarily like clapping back hard at him. I mean, if it was really pissing Devin off, I think the tweet would have been a lot worse than just, you know, stop hating, enjoy the win, you know, stuff like that. But again, you know, like you mentioned, the people get paid to cover stuff. I mean, it's part of the job. You're paid to cover sports. You're going to have an opinion. You've got to report what you see. Reporters are not exactly the most favorite people in the world. Anybody in media is not exactly the most favorite people in the world in general. But I get what people are saying. You know, it's like you're shitting on a win. Why are you shitting on a win for? But again, the tweet came out way before it was before the fourth quarter, man. That's what I'm saying.
Hey, Rudy, can I say this? And this is going over to Spain, okay? I played in Spain, and you know, a lot of people might not know. I averaged 48 points a game over there, right? Mm-hmm. But there was a guy one time, one of the reporters said something negative. And, you know, I had the people translate because it just looked funny to me when I read it. And so I had someone translate it, and he wasn't talking great about me. And so I had said something about him prior to that, maybe a week or two prior. Mm-hmm. So I kind of gave him something to go at me about. If I didn't worry about him and I just continued to go out and shine instead of worrying about him, you're not going to win when you start going at the media. Yeah. Because they're going to have more opportunities to come at you than you're going to have to come at them. You can go at them on TikTok or wherever you on X and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, you don't want to get into a thing with the media because, you know, at some point you're going to need these guys. And I think Don Harris is a good guy. I don't think he said anything that was really out of pocket. And sometimes, you know, it is a different era, but you got to have thicker skin. And what would Devin have said if they lost the game? So you can come out and talk after the game. If they lost the game, then what? Yeah. So don't focus. If you're very light skinned, I don't think if you got thin skin, you shouldn't be on social media reading what the guys are saying about you anyway, or what the ladies are saying about you anyway. That's a losing battle. And I wouldn't even get into that kind of thing in the first place. I'm going to just focus on becoming a better player.
Yeah, definitely a good question by Jeff Garcia. Again, Locked On Spurs, definitely a great question. It's kind of like you're saying, man. It's more of, you know, it's a person's job. They're going to come out. They're going to critique you, especially, you know, it's almost like a coach. Now, Don Harris is not a coach, but as a coach, is it wrong for you to get on your players? I mean, you're basically calling, you know, you're calling it like it is, man. If you're effing up in a game, are you not supposed to tell a player, hey, you know what, you've got a lot of turnovers. You keep turning the damn ball over. You're taking bad shots. Well, what are you doing? Are you going to take to X after that or social media and get pissed off at your coach for it?
Hey, Rudy, haven't you seen – there have been several videos that we've seen, everybody in San Antonio, where there were opportunities to get Victor the ball, right? Mm-hmm. And those guys didn't get him the ball. And if I'm correct, Devin Vassell is one of those guys, isn't he?
Part of the team.
I'm a Devin fan. You know it.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes, man, it goes with the territory. You got to suck it up and you keep moving, man. You just try to finish the season strong, and you stop worrying about what Don Harris says, because it could be Don today. Next game, it could be someone else, one of the other San Antonio reporters. You can't waste your energy getting into a tit for tat thing with these guys in the media. Just go out and do your job and continue to ascend. Let your game get better, and then Don will be saying all the great things that you might want him to say about you.
Yeah, it's always let your game speak for you. That's kind of what we've always been taught in sports. And no matter what sport it is, let your game speak for you. And if you're doing the right stuff, if you're doing everything right, you're playing to your best of your abilities, they can't write anything negative about you. But you know what? In Don's, not Don's defense, players are going to have bad games. And I get it if you keep getting called out game after game or more times than not. It does get a little bit annoying. And the Spurs going on, 12 wins for the year, there's been a lot more times where media has shit on this team. So I get I get why he would say, hey, just enjoy the win. We won. It was a hard-fought game. We came out with a victory. Just laugh and have fun with it. Why do you got to say this? Why do you got to say this? Because I'm sure these guys have been hearing it all year long, man.
Rudy, we won 12 games, man. I mean, what is Devin expecting? A victory parade? I mean, come on now. You got to use some common sense here. We won 12 games, my man. So everyone in the media could be ripping the Spurs if they really wanted to, but they're not doing that. You made a great point. It's not something that happens like every week. You hear somebody, this is a team, this is a city, they support the Spurs, and you know that very well. Mm-hmm. And that includes Don Harris. So it's not like he's going out of his way every week. Let me see what I could say negative about somebody on the Spurs today. If that were the case, then we would have a different response from myself and maybe from you as well. But that's not what happens. So just suck it up, my man. When you see Don, tell him no big deal. And I'm sure he would tell you the same thing. And then we just keep it moving, man, and just continue to try to get better. And that's it.
Yeah, and let me bring that up real quick again, because I failed to mention Don did actually respond, and he said, no hate, get paid to call it like I see it, great finish, big win for your squad. So, I mean, he did come back and just kind of like what you said, at the time, he called it like I saw it, but you guys finished strong. You got the win. Sweet. No big deal. So it was an in the moment type thing that Don Harris said it. He called it like it is. And that's the response. And that was a classy response by Don. But again, it's social media, Derek. I mean, social media rears its ugly head again, because I can put something 10 minutes ago, then the world can change 10 minutes later. And my tweet, is backfiring on me. It's terrible.
But how does the comment even hurt Devin? I'm just saying, does he turn the ball over? Yes.
Every player does.
Okay, so I don't understand what is he expecting Don to say? He didn't say anything that was really out of bounds, man. He's just doing his job. He gets paid to do that job. He's been doing it for a while. It could be even worse, man. He could be playing for the Detroit Pistons, my hometown. And then he'll be really upset with some of the things that they say. So it goes with the territory, man. Just try to improve, help the team improve, and then all the comments you want, some of them still aren't going to be positive. Rudy, if the Spurs were 70-12,
they're still going to find something wrong.
Someone that might have something to say negative, occasionally say something negative. It goes with the territory. That's what these guys and these ladies get paid to do, man. They're just doing their job, and I think Devin should just be focused on getting better and doing his job.
Yeah, it's funny because, if the Spurs were 70-12 or, 65-17, a great record, there's still going to be those people that back in the day, they've got to change the rules because, Timmy camps in the paint a little too long or, something like that. You're going to have something, whether you're winning or you're losing, someone's going to bitch about something. Someone's going to find something to bitch about.
This is a lesson for all the young people that's trying to play, right? There's a guy out there right now. I'm going to just show you how character matters. And this is why you don't want to get into a tit for tat with the media. There's a guy that just got waived by the Atlanta Hawks a day or two ago, right? By the name of Patty Mills. Could you imagine how many people would be happy to see Patty Mills back in San Antonio because of how much of a high character guy he is.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is Patty has had things said negatively about himself. He just keeps it moving, man. Him and his wife, they go to the South Town or whatever, and they go get their coffee or they ride their bikes in the community, the King William District or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But you want to keep that good name. And that's what I'm trying to tell Devin as a young guy. Sometimes the people are going to say things that might come off the wrong way to you. But you got to think about the big picture, man. And you just got to be bigger than that. Just go out and continue to play. And you always want to be wanted. And that's the thing. That's why you don't get into it. You might need to go back over that same bridge. They say don't burn bridges because you never know when you might have to go back over that same bridge. And to me, that's when you're dealing with the media.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree. Jeff's back in here saying, what about Doncic going at the media, though? Every player is going to go at the media. And I think one guy earlier, John, actually made a point that in this day and age, Derek, media-driven popularity is what I'm going to call it, is huge because of it's your brand. You're trying to keep your brand. You're trying to build your brand. It's like I said, it's the social media stuff. So you can't have media guys basically calling you out or reporting on stuff that you don't want them to report because now you're messing with my brand. You're messing with this. So that's where it's kind of hard to differentiate everything because I mean players are going to go after media all the time. So then media is like
just let Locked On Spurs focus on this. What he said about Doncic going at the media, right? Mm-hmm. Is Devin Vassell on the same level as Luka Doncic?
No.
Okay. So people go at Kevin Durant all the time, and Kevin Durant responds. If those of you don't believe it, just go on X. I've even written Kevin because some of the stuff he says is funny, but it's not going to affect Luka in a negative way. It could affect Devin Vassell in a negative way because Luka will be with Dallas as long as he chooses to be. Can Devin Vassell say the same thing about the Spurs? So he might need a Don Harris or someone before it's all said and done, and that's all I want the guys to be mindful of that.
Thank you and that's what I want to get your opinion on that because it was kind of a popular thing last night, popular into this morning, and to get a perspective from players and media who you dealt with media a whole lot more than I know I have. I've kind of dealt with behind the scenes stuff, but you've actually dealt with media. You've had criticism from media, from overseas.
Lots of it.
So I mean, getting a player's perspective is huge when it comes to something like this. We're both in agreement on that. I mean, it's something that, okay, you know what? It's been said. Just kind of move on, let it go. Go to the next game. Let's just play ball. Let's just, move on.
Let me say this quickly. I went up with the Nets. You know how I came in. I had to come in the hard way. I had to scratch and claw. And I ended up becoming a starter. And I ended up playing 35 minutes a game, right? Mm. But when I got hurt, I was out for a while. And then when I came back, my spot was taken up, my shooting guard spot, because I was a small forward, but I also played in the backcourt, and I was backing up Reggie Theus. When I came back, Drazen Petrovic had been traded now. Since I was out, they traded Drazen from Portland to New Jersey, right? So I pretty much became an afterthought because I was out with injury. But, the league continues to go on, right? Yeah. So the thing was, the media said some negative things about me. Do I get into the tit for tat, or do I just try to focus on getting back into the lineup like I was before my injury? I chose to just go out and be quiet. I couldn't question Bill Fitch about me not playing. What purpose would that serve? That would only make things worse. So I dealt with a lot of criticism in the media. It goes with the territory.
Yeah, I understand that. And that's something that people have to understand. I mean, you're going to be criticized. I mean, hell, even the guy walking down the street gets criticized for something. Everybody gets criticized no matter what. It's just how you handle criticism. This is Sweep the League. Derek Gervin, Rudy Campos Jr. We're going to take a quick commercial break. On the way back, we've got Flashback Friday. Tim Gonzalez wants to know about Larry Keenan, Derek. He's trying to figure out – I'll just read his question before we go to commercials so you kind of get an idea. He says, here's a good question. Which era would Larry Keenan fit in this Spurs era. That's something to keep in mind on the way back. On the flip side, it's Derek Irvin, it's Rudy Campos Jr. Also, Caleb Williams, not a good look at the combine. And I don't use the combine to measure anything, but I'm using it to measure Caleb Williams. We'll get into that here as soon as we get back. This is Sweep the League, all part of the Alamo City Podcast Network on YouTube. Go like, go subscribe, smash that subscribe button. We'll be right back.
MCS General Contracting, more than 30 years of combined experience in concrete placement. They are the best in the business, honest pricing, high quality work. They get going on house foundations, driveways, concrete patio decks. If you want to extend the deck, extend the driveway. If you're a business and you need to put together a slab, a parking lot, or other concrete placement services or sidewalks, reach out to MCS General Contracting at 210-774-9155. They're confident in their skills, so give Chris Leha over at MCS General Contracting a call at 210-774-9155. And thank you for being a sponsor of this show.
Yeah, MCS General Contracting. Y'all guys need anything done, just give them a call. They are fantastic. Chris Leha and the boys out there will definitely take care of you. They do a tremendous job. They are a sponsor for Alamo City Podcast Network. Appreciate you guys for joining on. So we'll get to the Flashback Friday right now, Derek. Let me bring up that question again so we can hit up there. One of the flashback questions that we've got. Larry Keenan, Special K, man. What era would he fit in when it came to the San Antonio Spurs? Let's get it from Derek Irvin himself.
Well, for me, you're talking about a personal friend who still looks like he's in playing shape today in 2024. I could see K in this era because Larry Keenan was a guy that likes to get out and run the floor, kind of like the James Worthy era. He was the same style player. He could run the floor. He could rebound. He could put the ball on the floor. He's a razzle-dazzle type guy. He had a lot of similarities to Dr. J. So I think that he would be made for this era. I'm a big Larry Keenan fan. And by the way, Spurs, y'all still need to put that jersey up there. Now it's Muhsin Keenan, but he's earned it. But, yeah, I think he could play in this era. I think he fit perfectly.
So this era would be good. One flashback Spur that I've always thought about, and I never saw him play. I didn't see him at all. But let's bring up another former Spur, Derek, Mike Gale of the San Antonio Spurs. I've always heard my dad talk about Mike Gale. He was actually a friend of one of my uncles as well, but I never really got to meet him. Mike Gale for the San Antonio Spurs. Let's give some Spurs history to everybody out there. Give us a little bit of insight on Mike Gale, former Spur.
When you start talking about guys like Patrick Beverly, guys that are going to give you total effort night in and night out on both ends of the floor. Mike wasn't needed to be like a top scorer, but if you needed him to score, he could score. But when you talk about defensive, oh my goodness, the guy was just a workhorse, and he's bringing it 48 minutes a night. And rest in peace, Mike. I love you. The nickname that I knew back then, he was called Sugar. Mm-hmm. And, man, the guy, if you were salt, you're going to be guarded by Sugar. I'm telling you. Mike, he brought it every single night. He was a teammate. And when you're talking about teammates, you want guys that do a little bit of everything. If you remember, Rudy, George Karl was also in that same cloth for me.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys, they would do whatever it takes. If it took diving on the floor, if it took getting a deflection, if it took getting a steal, a block shot. I hope people start really studying the history of the Spurs because, as you know, man, we've had some top-notch offensive players here, but we've also had some top-notch people and top-notch defenders. And when you talk about the greatest defenders that ever played for the Spurs, Mike Gale fits in that category in my mind.
Yeah, Mike Gale, like I said, I never really saw him play, but, the history that I've done on the Spurs and the research that I kind of do on them, I definitely loved his game. Even a guy that I think could play in this era that would be pretty successful, not so much on the scoring standpoint, but probably one of the best assist guys is Johnny Moore, man. And he's actually coaching Alamo City All-Stars, I believe, basketball.
Yeah, the ABA. Yes, sir. ABA.
Yeah, so I think Johnny Moore could fit in this era too, just being an assist man, being a point guard in this era.
But Johnny also improved his shot because when he came into the league out of the University of Texas, he was cut several times around the league, including by the Spurs. But Johnny continued to work on his game. He improved his shot dramatically. He became a really good player, man. It's sad that people didn't really get to see him in his heyday, playing in the backcourt with George Gervin, my big brother. And then he also got an opportunity to play with Alvin Robertson. And at that time, they were one of the best backcourts in the NBA. So I think Johnny would be made for this era as well. He had the quickness. He could defend. And he continued to improve his shot. You know who he improved his shot, Rudy? It reminds me, remember how Jason Kidd, when he came in the league, you didn't even think about Jason Kidd shooting the ball. And then he just continued to extend his range and put in the work. Johnny Moore would be the same player today, same type player.
Yeah, Johnny Moore, I think in this era would be pretty dang good. Tim Gonzalez, Derek, but would Larry Keenan and Wemby work together in this era?
Are you kidding me, man? You're talking about because Wemby's continued to improve his rebounding. See, we're playing with Larry Keenan would have made things easier for Wemby because Keenan is a guy that's going to get you 22 points a night, and he's also going to get you 10 or 11 rebounds. So, yeah, I think that Wemby would have loved playing with K. They could even play some high-low if you wanted to. And, yeah, I think that Wemby would have really enjoyed it. Keenan's 6'9", but he had really long arms. And he could defend. He was an underrated defender. People didn't give him the credit he deserved defensively. He could block shots, and he could steal the ball. And I don't think any player that's at Wemby's level would turn away a player that could do all those things that Larry Keenan could do.
You know, one guy who I think could make Wemby's life a lot easier playing right next to him is Artis Gilmore, the A-Train. Just doing all the little dirty stuff for Wemby, grabbing the boards. And I think it actually benefits Wemby if he had a player like Artis right next to him. The defensive side would be stout, but I mean, just getting those boards, because you and I had concerns about Wemby being a rebounder in the league. Clearly, he's been improving on the rebounding side, but adding a guy like the A-Train, that would be pretty good.
Okay, then let me throw this at you. He's not exactly the A-Train offensively, but what if you were to throw in a guy that had 26 rebounds the other night? He had 17 points and 26 rebounds. What if you were to bring an Andre Drummond to the Spurs?
That's pretty close to what I would be looking at when it came to A-Train. I mean, almost
I'm just
in today's era.
Well, I'm just putting that out there for the Spurs because, as you know, a lot of people don't know, but you do, that two guys used to come down here and work out at the Gervin Center in the summer. One of them's name was Tobias Harris. The other one's name was Andre Drummond.
Yeah.
So he already has a little history here with the Gervins in San Antonio. So now I'm hoping that the Spurs will extend that olive branch and think about bringing him into the Spurs so that you could move Victor to the 4. Victor kind of reminds me of Tim. I don't think he really wants to be a center. He's more of a 3 of a 4 in this era. And you bring Andre Drummond in, I think that makes things a lot smoother. We're not going to get a DeMarcus Cousins. I think Drummond still has 3 or 4 good years left. So I'm hoping the Spurs think about that and go out and try to bring him to San Antonio and make Victor's life a lot easier.
Yeah, there's a lot of moves you can make to make Victor's life a lot easier, and that's going into this offseason. So it's definitely something that the Spurs can actually do. We're going to move right along here. We've got some more flashback later on at the end of the show. We kind of saved the vault stuff for the end. But we got to get to some NFL draft combine stuff, man. I know Tim's in here real quick. What if Derek Gervin, this starting lineup for the Spurs, Wemby, A-Train, Keenan, Dawkins, and Gervin?
Johnny Dawkins.
That's a pretty good lineup, I think. Why does he throw a Dookie in there? Come on, man. You gotta throw shots at me in there.
A lot of people don't remember Johnny Dawkins, man. Johnny was All-American at Duke. Johnny can get up and down the floor. He would be one. You know today who Johnny Dawkins is today as far as getting up and down the floor? You got Colin Sexton. Guys like that are fast, that can get from end to end quickly. And that's what Johnny Dawkins would bring to the Spurs today. The man was lightning fast, and he could shoot the ball. So he would be welcomed in this era, I believe. So I like this lineup: Wemby, A-Train, Keenan, Dawkins, and Gervin. You know, I love that lineup.
And that's a lot of points being put up, man. That's a lot of points. That's ABA points with some some 80 and 90 defense probably.
Hey, you got about 10 blocks a game too.
That's exactly what I'm saying, man. That's a good mix of both offense and defense on that kind of lineup, man. I got to ask you one time. I've been meaning to ask you since when we do talk, but as a kid, why was I so not infatuated or in love, but I just had a thing for Hershey Hawkins, man. Watching him play, it just looks so smooth, his game. When I used to watch
scores then, because if you look at what did Hershey do when he was in college, he filled it up, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I used to watching him with Philadelphia.
Yeah, and even with the Sixers, Hershey, and then you're talking about another tough-nosed guy. A lot of people used to talk about Latrell Sprewell and those kind of guys, and Hershey is not far below that. He didn't get the accolades that I thought he should have gotten. I thought he was a very good player offensively, and I also thought he brought it on the defensive end. And so Hershey Hawkins is another guy I would like. Those are the kind of players we need in San Antonio. They're going to bring their lunch pail with them every night, and they come in and they go on to work, and they're going to give you the best that they have every single night. And Hershey Hawkins falls into that category.
Oh, 100%, man. Hershey Hawkins, another guy that I'm like, man, I at least love watching him.
Well, we brought in Alfred Hughes. I mean, who I love Alfred, man, as a friend. I won't say too, but if I had to choose between Alfred and Hershey Hawkins, it would be Hershey Hawkins.
Yeah, man. Alfrederick Hughes, that's for another show. We can talk about Alfrederick later on. We got to move on.
I love you, Al.
We got to talk about some Caleb Williams, man. So Caleb Williams already had a lot of doubts coming into the NFL. I'm one of those guys, and Gio's always been on my case about it, about how, Caleb's going to be generational, Caleb this, Caleb that. I still don't buy it. Another happening at the NFL Combine. I don't read much into Combine when it comes to workouts. To me, you can run the 40, great. You're putting, a muscle T-shirt on and some shorts, and you can throw a pass, great. There's a difference between doing that kind of stuff and actually game play, game film, in-game experience. So that's why I don't buy much into the Combine stuff, other than the medical physicals, the interviews, stuff like that. Caleb Williams came out and basically skipped all the medical testing, didn't release his medical records for anything. And his response was basically, my family and my team decided that it was best for me not to do that.
Yeah.
As a front office guy, Derek, the first thing that hits me and smacks me like a ton of bricks across the head is the one question, and that's a one-word question, is why? Why? Because if I'm drafting you, and I'm drafting, he said he made a comment today. Basically, he's expecting to go number one, and there's no plan B. He's going to be number one. That's another red flag for me. Like, okay, well, you're not guaranteed, man. You're
Say
not
the word, Rudy. Say the word, Rudy.
I'm gonna let you say that word, man.
I'll spell the word. It sounds kind of like a DIVA.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I like Caleb, but if you really look at it, Rudy, I mean, he struggled. He had some games. They started off well, and I'm at USC, but he also had some up and down moments. They struggled. He struggled. You watched him play against Colorado. The whole country saw them play against Colorado. I like Caleb Williams, but I don't love Caleb Williams as we look forward. And I'm going to say this, and I don't even know if he's better than Justin Fields if I'm looking at his ceiling. I don't think his ceiling is higher than Justin Fields. Just looking at him over the course of his career, I've watched him play. And I think he's a good quarterback, but we know things can change when you get to the NFL. And I don't want to see him become another Zach Wilson but it's a possibility. So to me, he should be trying to get in all the work he can. I want to be consensus number one. And I think as we get closer to the draft, Rudy, I don't know. I think there are going to be some teams that are going to become skeptical of that. Do we take a Drake May, even Marvin Harrison? I don't think the Bears will take a receiver, but we do know it's the NFL. It's a business. And I don't even know if he's the best quarterback out there on the board right now, to be honest about it.
Yeah, talent-wise, you can say he does good things on the field talent-wise, but when we always say here at Sweep the League, all of us do, when it comes to NFL quarterback the number one thing is the mind. You've got to have a good head on your shoulders because you have to analyze everything. You've got to be able to read defenses. You've got to be able to check down. You've got to be able to go through your reads, let the play just, play itself out. You've got a lot to do where arm strength kind of takes a backseat to a lot of stuff. I mean, accuracy takes a higher priority, but all these other things, all these mental aspects in the quarterback position take priority when it comes to playing quarterback in the NFL. By this kind of stuff, and you're right, acting like a diva already, to me, just tells me I don't want anything to do with this guy.
What is he afraid of, Rudy? If you're in shape and all of that and you're confident in your abilities, sometimes you have to go over and beyond to show these people that I'm worthy of being the number one pick. And not only am I worthy of being the number one pick, I'm worthy of being the guy that you're going to want to pay for 15 years. And that's what I think sometimes the players get away from that. I know it's a different time, but still.
I think we might have lost Derek there for a little bit, but we'll get him back here in just a little bit here. This is Rudy Campos Jr. Derek Irvin will be back. I might have lost his connection there, but we'll get him back here soon. Caleb Williams. I mean, the thing with Caleb Williams is the fact that, yeah, it's tough to make me want to go out there and get him. The stuff that he pulled today, again, I don't buy a whole lot of the combine stuff, but I do buy when it comes to medical evaluations. And he kind of walked in there smiling. He didn't take this very serious at all. And that's very concerning to me. I don't care what you do as far as Tesco 40-yard dash. You don't want to throw at the combine. You don't want to throw at the combine. I really don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. But it's the mental aspect. And Caleb Williams is showing to me, and he shows to a lot of people at the combine, a lot of front office guys, a lot of GMs, his mental state is not great. And I don't see it transpiring good to the next level at all. Louis Luna is in here, says keep Justin or draft Caleb. So for me, if we're going my opinion on this, it's basically keep Justin Fields, trade number one down, grab a whole bunch of draft picks. You're going to get a good amount of draft picks. You can even get a player, and you build around that. So if you're talking about get another top 10 pick, so you'll have 2 in the top 10. If somebody's really wanting to pay for Caleb Williams and they want to go to number one, say, for example, Washington, you go down a pick, or if you go down to the Giants, I believe they're 6, 7, 8, 9 around there, you can get a player. So just keep Justin, Louis, keep Justin, and go draft a Malik Neighbors. If you're lucky to get a Marvin Harrison Jr. to follow you, you get a Marvin Harrison Jr. Go get a Malik Neighbors. But also not only that, you have that second first round pick early. Go get you an alt from Notre Dame, Fashanu out of Penn State. Go get the offensive line help. Build around Justin Fields, because I feel Justin's going to have the bigger and better career compared to Caleb. What you do with Caleb is you trade Justin away. You're going to get some picks. You're not going to get what you're expecting to get for Justin Fields. You're probably going to get second rounders, which, okay, even second rounders in the NFL draft are gold. We do understand that, but you're resetting the clock for the Chicago Bears if you trade Justin Fields. And not only that, you're drafting Caleb Williams, who comes into the combine as a diva. And he's, to me, like I said, he's not taking it serious at all. He walks in, answers the questions, just ho-hums about it, doesn't really care, in my opinion, from what I've seen from the videos. You don't draft a guy like that. You don't want to rebuild this whole thing with Chicago. Right now, there's no right, there's no wrong for Chicago. They hold the key to everything. But in my honest opinion, Louis, you keep Justin, you build around Justin Fields. You can go get an elite receiver. You can go get some offensive line help. You have $80+ million in cap space. So that's where you go and sign an Austin Eckler to get your running back committee solidified. If you can go get a Saquon, go get a Saquon. But apparently, from what I'm seeing, Saquon Barkley is being rumored to the Houston Texans right now. So go get an Austin Eckler. It makes a lot of sense. You've got a great pass catching back, and if he stays healthy, that's even better. But go get an Austin Eckler. in the offseason as a running back. You go draft you a Marvin Harrison, draft you a Malik Neighbors, one of those guys, even a Rome Aduze if you can get it later in the draft. Go get the offensive line help. You've got some really good pieces in Fashanu. You've got a really, really good piece in Alt as well from Notre Dame. There's a lot of great things you can do in this draft if you are the Chicago Bears. So, again, my opinion, 100% of the time, just keep Justin Fields, build around Justin Fields. That's what you need to do. Don't draft Caleb Williams. And if you do, you're resetting the entire clock on this rebuild for the Chicago Bears. We're trying to get Derek Gervin back on the stream. Let me text him real quick so I can get him back on here. He's had some computer issues, so trying to get Derek Gervin back on the stream here. But again, Caleb Williams not taking this very serious. I think it's something that you've got to do. You've got to just move on from the whole Caleb Williams idea. Allow another team to draft him. Use your picks wisely, Chicago. You control the draft, definitely. Thanks for the question, Louis Luna. Marvin Harrison Jr. is another guy out there. Again, he came in. He was supposed to talk to the media. Didn't show for the media. Didn't show to talk to the media there. Let me bring up that real quick here. OSU, Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay. So, again, he's supposed to speak at the Combine, never showed up. There was also a report that he was behind the tents, basically getting his medical evaluation. Could be another reason why. I haven't seen anything come out from Marvin Harrison Jr. Don't let this deter you. Marvin Harrison Jr. is one of the elite wide receivers coming into this draft. Is he the best wide receiver coming out of this draft? Safe to say, I really don't know. I put other guys at equal value when it comes to MHJ. Malik Neighbors is one. Roma Duze is going to be a fine pick. I like later guys like Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. I like guys like Western Kentucky, Malachi Corley as well. Derek is coming back onto the stream here. Let me bring Derek back in. Derek, we've got you. Everything good over there?
Yeah, man, I apologize. Well, technology, man. You know how it goes.
Man, technology is going to be the death.
I apologize to everyone out there, but I am back and better than ever.
You're good, man. I was just talking to him about Caleb Williams. Louis Luna came in here and basically had said, his question was keep Justin or draft Caleb. I think after seeing how he was today, it scares me from drafting Caleb. I just keep Justin, build around him. We've talked many times, Derek, going out, getting an Austin Eckler with all that cap space you have, drafting a wide receiver to pair up with DJ Moore, getting some offensive line help. I mean, there's so much you can do with this to Chicago Bears.
Hey, Rudy, I like I told you, why are they so in a hurry to give up on Justin Fields is what I don't understand. I think his future is going to be pretty good. I don't think he's going to be a superstar, but I don't think he's a bad guy that you run off after 1 year. Did they surround him with weapons that would make him successful?
Nope.
That's the question. So if they didn't surround him with players that would make him successful, why is Caleb Williams any different? I just don't think they should panic so soon. I believe in Justin Fields, and I think he's going to have a good career.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I've made that point to Gio so many times. Like, there's no reason to give up on Justin Fields. Why? Because they've never put a team around him. They've given him his best weapon is DJ Moore. I mean, I'm not sliding DJ Moore, but you haven't put anybody around Justin Fields to be successful. This is the draft where you build around Justin and you give him the weapons, because not only do you build around the draft, you've got the cap space to put weapons around Justin Fields. Make this team better. And that's where I think the Bears need to do. Like you said, they haven't put a team around him. This is the time to put a team around Justin.
Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the board, isn't he?
He's there. He's going to be there.
Well, I'm keeping, if I'm general manager, I'm keeping the quarterback that I currently have, and then I'm adding a superstar wide receiver, Marvin Harrison, right next to him, and then we just continue to build off of that.
Yeah, exactly. And we got D'Lo in here. Saquon or Henry to the Cowboys. I think from what I'm understanding, Saquon Barkley's really tied to the Houston Texans right now. They could definitely use an upgrade in the running back position. Saquon Barkley next to C.J. Stroud. After the season C.J. Stroud had, people are having high expectations. I'm actually one guy that's going to say kind of lower those expectations just a little bit, because you always hear about the sophomore slump when it comes to quarterbacks. Rookies coming out and they're having this amazing season. But again, in football, for me, I've always said when you have a quarterback that comes into the league, dominates the game for a little bit there, has a fantastic year, that gives you an entire year of defensive coordinators that are able to scheme against you. Let's see how fast CJ Stroud keeps his momentum going. Hopefully he does, but I think Saquon goes to the Texans. But Derrick Henry to the Cowboys, we mentioned that actually on Wednesday with Gio, and that was a good thing, because the Cowboys need a type of running back that they can lean on, that they can run the clock out with, basically, in some of these games. Take the ball out of Dak's hands and allow your running back to work.
Man, I think if they had Derrick Henry last season going down the stretch, they would have been a different team. Mm-hmm. And we had talked about that then when the Cowboys had an opportunity to go out, and I just couldn't understand how you just ignore a guy like that on the board. I guess they've gotten used to the Ezekiel Elliott's and the Tony Pollards or whatever. But to me, if you're looking at the Cowboys, they are a well-rounded team, but their biggest weaknesses were possibly Dak and a running back. And I like Tony Pollard, and they have a lot of small guys. But if you have a Derrick Henry, now you're talking about getting over the hump. And I think if they had him this past year, man, we'd be having a different conversation other than the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I think running back is, as much as Pollard is a great running back, if you're putting Pollard and Zeke side by side, I would take Pollard because there's more upside there. But when you look at the scheme of things, you're trying to take the ball out of Dak's hands. Pollard isn't that guy. Henry gets you those hard 4, 5, 6 yards that you need to get to keep Dak from, having to have the ball in his hands in crunch time. So you're 100% correct. If you have a player like Derrick Henry on the Cowboys last year, we might be singing a different tune. I would actually believe that the Cowboys had a legitimate chance last year. But knowing that, then you go to McCarthy, man. I mean, McCarthy's never been one to run the ball. So is that kind of a waste for Derrick Henry to go to Dallas if McCarthy can't change his thinking?
Do you see what he does to another team's defensive line, man? Just having to fight with Derrick Henry the whole game. You're worn out by the third quarter, man. And I thought that's what the Cowboys have missed. They thought they were getting that when they signed Ezekiel to his new deal, the $90 million deal. But to me, Ezekiel, you had to always worry about him coming in the season in shape. Yeah. Was he going to be training, or was he going to be in Cabo? And I think with Derrick Henry at this point in his career, you wouldn't have to worry about any of that stuff. This guy wants to win. I think he deserves to win. And I would love to see him at least get an opportunity to pair him up with Dak and CeeDee Lamb and see how that would work out.
Yeah, I think it works a lot better that way. And I don't think he's going to command a huge contract. I mean, Derrick's already kind of towards the end of his career. It's amazing that Todd Gurley is I think he's younger than Derrick Henry. To me, that amazing, because Todd Gurley it seems like he was in the league forever ago. But Derrick Henry definitely is going to be a guy that he's not going to command a whole lot of money. He's going to command a decent amount, but I think it's enough to where the Cowboys could make it work. And it definitely is. It could possibly put them in the right direction, getting a player like Derrick Henry. Tim Gonzalez, Bears need to draft a wide receiver. It's kind of what we've been screaming for a while now. There's no reason to look at the quarterback position. It's wide receiver. It's offensive line help. It's build around Justin. I mean, that's kind of the ideal thing, Derek, is getting a wide receiver to help Justin Fields out.
Not a wide receiver. There's man Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm going to say that again, Marvin Harrison Jr. To me, that's a no-brainer, man. You're talking about a guy, if you look at his ceiling, that's Hall of Fame. It's his ceiling. So to me, it makes total sense. I don't know. Certain teams, Rudy, you see losing teams, it's like that. I don't understand it. It's like they're afraid to come out of their comfort zone. What comfort zone? You've been losing all these years. Exactly. And you go out and make some changes. You upgrade your roster. And it starts with a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr.
That's what we're all saying, man. Even if the Bears trade down from 1 and get to, 6, maybe 7. You're going to have a Malik Neighbors there. You're going to have a Roma Duze there. You've got receiver. This draft class is actually pretty deep in receivers, so you can find a good weapon for Justin Fields later on in that first round.
Later in the first round, I agree. Even if it wasn't Marvin Harrison Jr., I agree. There's a whole bunch of receivers out there that are worthy of getting the opportunity to play in Chicago.
Yeah, again, the Bears can do no right. They can do no wrong. They hold all the keys. I mean, if they feel Caleb Williams is that guy, then by all means draft him and move on from Justin Fields. But at the end of the day, a majority of us think that that's probably the worst move you can make.
Hey, Rudy, can you imagine looking at a team, a pro team, and your best quarterback of all time might have been a Jim McMahon or I'm not going to go into the Jay Cutler. I'm just saying, come on, man.
I mean, even Rex Grossman was.
Yeah, right. Well,
how is that possible, Derek? I mean, the Bears are one of the blue bloods. They're one of the iconic NFL franchises, but to never have an elite quarterback.
Look at my hometown, man. How is it possible to never even have been to a Super Bowl and or even sniffed the Super Bowl all the years of me being – I'm 60 years old now. I'm a Detroit Lion fan. And so just imagine how I feel. And so it's not much different in Chicago other than they've had a winning pedigree with the Walter Paytons, the Mike Ditkas, and all. We can mention, go back way back then. Right now, I don't understand what their end goal is these last 10, 15, 20 years. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, the number one position on a football team is quarterback. That should probably be your priority year in, year out. I would say, where would you rank Justin Fields? That's a good question to say because we mentioned Jay Cutler, mentioned Rex Grossman, Jim McMahon. I mean, Justin Fields has to be one of the best quarterbacks in Bears history. If we're really playing
we're really looking at what they've had. So, yeah. It's still putting me on the spot, Rudy. You see that?
Yeah, I saw it says which player might surprise in the draft. And I think Gio and I, we named some yesterday. I was talking about Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky, the wide receiver. I think he's going to be a blast when it comes into the league, especially if he goes to a team like Kansas City. On the defensive side, Leatu Latu from UCLA, that linebacker. Man, he's going to do some damage if he stays healthy. But if you got a guy out there, Derek, that you want to talk about.
Well, that guy in LSU. I mean, Heisman Trophy winner.
Jaden Daniels.
There you are. Yeah, I think he has a very high ceiling. He won the Heisman. I thought it could go to a young man in Washington, as you know. Mm-hmm. So Jalen ended up getting it. And if you talk about a Heisman Trophy winner, so for me, I would definitely say that he would be my guy. If I'm saying a guy that's going to actually surprise people this year and have a better year than anticipated, that's who it would be for me, Mr. McDaniels.
Yeah, Daniels is definitely one to watch. I'm kind of low on Jaden Daniels only because of his frame. I think he's one of those guys where if he gets hit at the right time, it's going to be detrimental to his career. Of course, you never wish injury on anybody. I don't wish injury on anybody. I think I did that one time in my lifetime, and I really regret it, and I felt bad at the time. It was a long time ago, Derek.
Rudy, but do you factor in the fact now that you can barely even breathe on the quarterback? That's why I said Daniels, because he has he can get out of the pocket and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like they're going to let the you could barely touch a quarterback today.
Yeah,
we're no longer in the Tom Brady days. And, they let Tom, you might have been able to maybe breathe around Tom. But now they're kind of taking away where you can hit the quarterbacks as much. And, basically you just got to tackle a guy, grab a guy by the ankles or whatever. So that's why I think Daniels is going to surprise. I think he's a really good athlete. And I think he's going to be better than a lot of people are expecting. Even the guys that are judging him right now, the critics and everyone else, the scouts, I think he's going to be better than they expect him to be. And the reason I say that is because if you're talking about size, I had a brother that it's a different sport, but my brother was 6'9", playing at 185 pounds. So sometimes I think guys are wiry strong. They thin, but they're stronger than you think they are. They're just wiry. They have hard hands, a hard grip and all that. And that's what I think Daniels is going to be. And I want to see him do well.
Yeah, I love this question by D'Lo. Bryce Young or Caleb, who would you build around? Honestly, Bryce Young, I would build around Bryce Young. A lot of you. I mean, you saw what Bryce Young did at Alabama. And I've been one to say, and I've been on record for saying it, there's never been a successful Alabama quarterback, in my opinion, ever. So it's hard for me to believe in Alabama quarterbacks. I mean, they are Heisman Trophy winners. They are winners at the college level. They are winners at the high school level, but I've yet to see one. Maybe A.J. McCarron is probably one that had some success. I mean, you can go all the way back to Joe Namath, but don't get me started on the Joe Namath talk, because you and I have mentioned Joe Namath a bunch of times, how the only thing Joe Namath is known for is, I guarantee a victory. That is it.
Do they kind of remind you of the Indiana Hoosiers basketball-wise, other than Isaiah Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, basketball coming out of Indiana, it was hard to trust anybody.
They just don't put out those guys, just like you said about the Alabamas or what they just doesn't seem to happen very often.
And that's at that position at quarterback. Bama's put out some tremendous NFL talent. It's at the quarterback position, because, like you mentioned, Indiana, you go Calbert Chaney was really big coming out. Damon Bailey was a guy coming out of high school that was supposed to be, Mr. Indiana, Mr. Hoosier.
Jay Edwards, another young guy, Jay Edwards, yeah.
Jay Edwards, I mean, there was a lot of great players coming out of Indiana that just didn't pan out, and Bama's the same way. So for me, I'm building around Bryce Young, because I am not sold on Caleb, and especially the mentality of Caleb. I mean, you can have generational talent, but it doesn't mean squat, man. I mean, if guys, okay, this is an example, and it's a tough example because not too many people probably know about it. But if you want to go NBA standards, you want to talk guy that was supposed to be generational, that was supposed to be good coming out, all the talk, and we're running out of time, but we're going to get into this a little bit more right now. A guy that I remember coming out was Lenny Cook. He was at the high school level, was can't miss. He's going to dominate. He's going to do this. Lenny Cook is supposed to be that guy. When I hear Caleb Williams, I go back to Lenny Cook, man. I don't know why.
Well, that's actually a really good comparison. And Ronnie Fields is another guy from basketball that was projected up there like Lenny Cook. It just doesn't happen. Rudy, you on your game, my man. That's why people need to tune into this show, man. This is the best show. Hey, this is the best show out there, man. And definitely the best show in Texas.
Yeah, man. Lenny Cook just strikes me as a Caleb Williams.
Lenny was projected to be like even like you look at, they talked about Len Bias.
Mm-hmm.
Lenny Cook had the same projections. The ceiling was very high. Unlimited ceiling, and that's a very good comparison that you made.
Yeah, Lenny Cook was LeBron James before LeBron James. That was the hype around Lenny Cook coming into the
all you gotta do is look at the film. People that don't believe it, all you gotta do is pull up the videos.
Yeah, I mean, you can. These kids say receipts. You have to pull up receipts. You go look up Lenny Cook. I mean, you'll see everything there. Before we go, Derek, I'm going to go with the Bryce Young thing. I would build around Bryce Young. Thank you, D'Lo, for popping that question off. But one last thing I wanted to get into, because you've got the experience, and we mentioned this at the last show. I'm working my butt off to get this guy on the show because he's one of the guys that I'm really trying to get on here so we can talk to him. We can bring some of these athletes for you guys to talk about. Is Stephon Marbury. I mentioned the kid from Coney Island on Netflix, the documentary. So you're a guy who went similar to Stephon. He was in the NBA. Stephon had some all-star appearance, and he was on cloud 9, basically NBA talent-wise, one of the better guards in the league. Went to New York, went home to play basketball for the Knicks, and it just didn't work out, man. He got to a low point, out of the league, didn't get a shot, went overseas, career revitalized, Derek. You similarly went overseas. You mentioned you were averaging 48 points. I mean, the triumph that you can have just because you don't make it in the NBA a lot of times outweighs what you could have accomplished in the NBA. Stephon Marbury is one of those guys, man. I wanted to ask you on this type of atmosphere, this type of platform. It really is a victory whether you're playing in the NBA or not, because if you go overseas, that success is a whole different category, isn't it?
Steph gets treated like a pure legend overseas, and I'm glad to see it because you brought up his time. You know, he was with Minnesota Timberwolves, but he also ended up with the New York Knicks. And at that time, they were going through a lot of challenges, I'll say. Isaiah Thomas was working for the Knicks at that time, and it just didn't seem to work out for those guys. And so Steph, you know, if you remember, Steph started selling these gym shoes at a really cheap price.
And one, was it?
Yeah, and a lot of people bought into that. They liked the shoes, but just the fact that he was doing something like that, it was showing his side other than a basketball player. It was showing what kind of person he is. And then for him to go overseas, and he went over there and he played really well. And he was committed to staying over there. He never tried to come back to the NBA. And if you look at him today, he's a legend. Everyone over there, they know who Steph Marbury is. And to see him resurrect his career it's a fantastic thing to see. And because if you know, at one time, Rudy, people were, who was the better player? People had a question. Was it Steph Marbury or was it Allen Iverson?
Yeah.
And so, you know, Steph ended up falling off basically, had some challenges with the Knicks, but to go overseas and to resurrect his career and to do all the things he's done, he's touched a lot of people in a positive way. I'm talking young and old. So I was just absolutely just happy as can be to see him. Even now, we're talking about him. So that means he turned his career around. He did it in a very positive way. This is a guy that was an all-star player. You said that clearly, and he was. And the young people that don't know, they should look up the story, the history of Stephon Marbury. I'm elated to see him getting his just due. We're giving him his flowers while he's still here, and I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, we love talking always old NBA. And for me, it's old. It's like, man, this is like 90s, man, 2000 stuff. And we're calling it old. But you're right. A lot of people don't do the research. They don't look up some of these guys. And we want to try to bring a lot of these guys up, you know, back into the limelight because they were great in their own way. And Steph Marbury was great. I remember the battles he had when he was playing in Phoenix. He was teaming up with Amari Stoudemire and those series against the Spurs. I remember I was at a bowling alley. I don't know if it was game 1 of the first round, and he hit that buzzer beater to beat the Spurs in San Antonio. And he just running off the court. I mean, there's so many great memories of Steph Marbury. Obviously, the biggest what if is always, how would it have been if him and KG were together still with Wally Zerbiak and, you know, that team? That was a good team.
Hey, so maybe we need to get Dale Curry on here so we can ask him what made him name Wardell. Where did Steph Curry, the name Steph, even come from? Why did he even pick that name Steph? We might find out, be surprised. It might have something to do with Stephon Marbury.
Really, that would be a tremendous thing to get Dale on here, so we can maybe ask him that question. Because Stephon Marbury, I'll be honest, man. I had a pair of And One shoes. I bought into the And One hype. I had the shirts with the faceless man, you know, talking all that crap on the shirts. You know, school's in session. He would have the books in his hand with the basketball. I bought into the And One craze, and to me, the shoes were great. I actually would still buy a pair. They sell them at Champs every now and then. You'll find them. I would still buy a pair to this day.
Well, they talk about who had the best handles. They talk about all these guys and their handles. Rafer Austin, Skip to my Lou. You hear them talk about Kyrie and Steph and all, Jamal Crawford. Steph Marbury fits right into that category.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, man. Another classic legend from New York City, man. I mean, you're talking about
Kenny Anderson, Rod Strickland. We can go on and on. Mark Jackson. I mean, yeah.
I mean, plus the guys that people never heard about there.
Nate Tiny Archibald. I can't leave out one of my favorites.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys that came out of New York. It was the point guards. I mean, all the point guards came out of
Kenny Smith. Shout out! I ain't forget about you, Kenny.
We got a ton of stuff, man. Next week we're gonna go into a little bit of point guard talk with Derek because there's one guy that doesn't get any love that I want to bring to Lifelight. And Derek, this is way before my time. But a little bit of a preview here. We're going to ask the question, how good was JoJo White back in the day?
Rest in peace, JoJo. JoJo White was great. I won't go too far in depth because I'm hoping we can talk about this on the next show. But you're talking about a guy that was a personal friend of George's. They actually used to play golf together. And a lot of people might not know about JoJo because he was on a winning team, a winning organization, the Boston Celtics. But when JoJo was playing, he was an all-star caliber type player. And he was one of the reasons that the Boston Celtics were so successful. And I don't know if people know it. They should look it up. He also has a son right now that's been an actor out there that's pretty popular. But JoJo, for me, is a stellar player. I put him in there with the Walt Fraziers and all of those guys. Just a supreme player, a superstar in my mind. He just didn't get the recognition he deserves because he was surrounded by other really great players.
Yeah, we will go into depth with that because when I remember, the reason why it comes up, there was late night drives with my dad where we would be going out of town, family trips, and he would be driving late at night. I would stay up with him. And I always asked my dad, if you had to start a basketball team, an NBA team, who would your first pick be? Why 100% of the time he would say JoJo White? I always wondered why.
Rudy, you looking at Sohan's free throws right now?
Yeah.
JoJo White was basically a one-handed jump shooter.
Yeah.
There weren't many. There was a George McGinnis. JoJo White was in there. Michael Adams kind of had the push shot. Yeah. It was really a one-hander. He had two hands on, didn't release it. Yeah. JoJo's one of those guys with the one-handed release.
Yeah, that's true. I do. And I've seen the film on JoJo, man. So we're going to get into that because, again, why I used to question my dad, why would you start? I mean, Michael Jordan, you had, you can go Wilt Chamberlain, you can go everything. But my dad's first pick every single time was JoJo White.
Your dad is a very smart man.
Definitely going to get into some JoJo White talk. Shout out to Steph Marbury, man. Hey, brilliant career. I'm glad to see you are successful in China. Before we go, Tim Gonzalez, I have another good question for Derek Gervin next Friday. Hey, Tim, asking on Monday. Derek should be back on Monday.
Back Monday, Tim.
Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays is with Derek Gervin. We open up the vault with Derek every chance that we get. So for Derek Gervin, it's Rudy Campos Jr. Coach Gio will be back Monday, hopefully, so we can get the full team in here as well. Again, hit up Alamo City Podcast Network on YouTube. Subscribe, like, share it. We want to get to 1,000 subscribers. So for Derek Gervin, it's Rudy Campos Jr. Until we sweep the league again next time, we will see you later, knuckleheads.
Rudy, I'm on my way to the Gervin Center. Everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe.
Have a great weekend. You guys can find me at Kawakan as well if you're out there. See you guys soon.